Well, thank you for coming out, everybody. I am Tim Sheehy. Those are also my pronouns. I've been a he-she for 38 years, and going to school in the 80s with that name was not fun, I can promise you that. But now we're all protected and no one can make fun anymore. It's great. Well, listen, thank you for coming out. Thank you for taking the time out of your day, a beautiful summer day. It could be on the river, could be doing whatever it is you got to do. But thank you for coming here, because Paul nailed it. He's the first other elected representative of Canada I've heard mention this. You've got to fight the apathy, and you being here today showing you are not apathetic. You care, you see what's happening, and you're getting involved. I firmly believe the greatest threat to this country is not Russia or China or the southern border. It is apathy. It's the fact that most Americans no longer care. And most Americans no longer think that this is a special place to live. They just assume that this amazing country we all are allowed to call home. It's a privilege for us to call this country home. Whether we're born here or came here, this is the best country in the world to raise a family, to start a business, to build your life. There's nowhere else in the world where 10 million people a year are starving in deserts, drowning in boats, risking rape, murder, and human trafficking to come live in any other country except this one right here. And be proud of that. But it's not just going to stay this way. It's not just going to be like this. We have to stand up and fight to save it. And we're watching every single day a country that we were raised in. Many of us fought for. I see some veteran hats here. I fought for it as well. My wife did. She was a Marine Corps officer. I was a Navy SEAL. We fought for this country, joined when we were 18. And there's many ways to serve your country. You can fight for it, put on a uniform. You can run for office, regardless of what office. It takes a constitutional republic, which is what we are. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. It's a big difference. A constitutional republic depends on people like you getting involved. And right now, the problem with our country is regular people are not involved anymore. We keep sending the same people back to D.C. over and over again and expecting things to change. And then when they don't, we act surprised and we get mad about it. You know, right now, anybody know what the lowest body in the nation that has an approval rating is, the lowest organization in the nation? Congress, yeah. You know, and you wonder why. So why don't we send some new people back there to reboot that failed organization and get it serving everyday Americans again? Because that's the problem with it right now, is our government is no longer working for the American people. And at the end of the day, that's what our Constitution was meant to do, was built as citizen government that's of the people, by the people, for the people. And along the way, we've drifted from that, largely because we've created a permanent political class that's no longer accountable to us, that has a permanent bureaucracy that's not accountable to us. And probably nowhere is that more evident than right here in northwestern Montana, where we have forests that you can't cut a tree down anymore and make lumber out of it, but you can watch it burn, and that's okay. You know? And that's why John Tester's attacking me on public lands. If you see these ridiculous ads, you know, he's been attacking me on everything, from my military record, which is funny because he never served a day in his life, you know, to my family, to my charitable giving, to my stance on public lands. And the reason he's attacking it is because he's afraid of it. Because if the American people realize who the true attackers of public lands are, the Democrats, they're going to be in big trouble. Because what the Democrats have done with our public lands is they've taken them, they've gobbled them up, they've put them into protected status, and they've handed them to radical environmentalists to run every day. Radical environmentalists out of D.C. and bureaucrats out of D.C. and foreign organizations that spend billions of dollars on radical environmental policies. They're the ones who are actually trying to take public lands away, because public lands belong to you. They don't belong to bureaucrats. And my stance on public lands is very simple. We don't sell any of it, but you should have a bigger say in what happens in that forest right there than some bureaucrat in D.C. You should have more of a say in what happens in those BLM grazing plots around here than some environmentalists in Seattle. And when we have forests being overgrown, 6-foot-high fuel loads, sharing a fence line with your property, you ought to be able to go in there and clear that forest, cut those trees down, and make it a healthy, safe forest for your family and your home. You shouldn't have to sit there and watch that forest turn into a tinderbox and then watch it burn. You shouldn't have to do that. And that's what we're being forced to do all across this country. We wonder why housing costs are so expensive, because we're buying lumber from Chile and Canada instead of right here in Montana. So my stance on public land is very simple. It stays public, but it better work for all the public, not just some brain trust back in D.C. or some environmental group out of country that's telling us how we should manage our land. I'm a farmer rancher. I have BLM grazing land. I have state grazing land. I should have more of a say of what happens on the land that borders my fence line than somebody 2,000 miles away, and so should you. So that's what public land is. I'll tell you the other thing that I'm just so damn sick of hearing about John Tester. So he takes care of the veterans. He's all for the veterans. Yeah, exactly. I heard someone said bullshit. That's exactly right. He gets the flat top haircut to look like a veteran. But guess what? We have record high veteran suicides in this nation right now in the history of our country. You know what the highest number one state for it is? Montana. Right now we're spending twice as much money on illegal immigrants in this country than we are on our veterans. We're spending $90 million on hotel rooms for illegal immigrants. They get free health care, free food, free shoes, free plane tickets, free lodging, all on your dime. That's not some magical charitable fund that comes out of your pocket. And yet we have homeless veterans, and we have veterans that aren't getting the health care they need. That doesn't sound like a veteran care to me, and John Tester's accountable for it because he's been on the VA committee for 15 years. So it's about time we take that narrative away from him. When people mention that to you, well, I'm kind of a Republican, but I like Tester. He takes care of the vets. Like, no, bullshit, stop. It's about time you wake up and smell the coffee, because if he's taking such good care of veterans as the chair of the VA committee, why is our VA system in disarray? Why are veterans not getting the care they need? And why are we sending more money and VA resources to support illegal immigrants when our veterans are suffering? Time to put a stop to it. Time to send them home. I envy some of the other candidates that Paul called out, because you guys have had political experience. I've never run for anything, so I definitely jumped into the deep end running for a Senate race against a 18-term incumbent like this guy or whatever. But I was shook into public service. I'm sure we all had moments in our life. You have those before and after moments in your life where sometimes there's a few of them. Car accident, family member killed, or you saw something. Who knows? For me, that there was, I had a couple of before and after events in my life, but one of them was the collapse of Afghanistan in 2021. I served 5 tours all over the world, been in 93 countries, been in dozens of gunfights, been wounded in combat, lost friends in combat, carried guys without legs, put them on the helicopter, carried friends home in boxes. I'm no World War II hero, but I saw my fair share of stuff. And we fought hard there. After the deadliest attack in the history of our nation, deadliest attack, deadlier than Pearl Harbor, deadlier than any other assault on our soil in the history of America, was 9/11. And I volunteered to join up after 9/11 to go fight, as did my wife. She was a Marine Corps officer. See, we got a jarhead right here. They're a real pain in the ass, I'll tell you that. And we joined together, and we served together. We saw each other about 45 days spread across 6 years during the war. And that's a secret to happy marriage, right? Is we never actually see her. Now, she's my best friend, soulmate. We got 4 beautiful kids together. One's right there. Look at how bored he looks. He's like, damn, I'm so sick of this. Yeah, he's over it. But I always try to bring a kid with, just because there's no more important job in this world than being a father. That's it. Or a mother. My wife's a Naval Academy graduate, high-performing Marine combat veteran, and she's a full-time mother because she said there's nothing more important for me to do than raise our 4 children. And that doesn't mean we're anti-women having jobs. That just means that she recognizes I had a very important job. I served our country in uniform in combat for 10 years. Now, in this phase of life, when we have young children, the most important thing for me to do is to raise them. We homeschool them. So we teach them everything in school. And we do that for a very specific couple of reasons. Number one, we want them to grow up with a relationship with their God. And unfortunately, schools across this country are making that taboo. In many cases, they're actively deprogramming that. I mean, watch the stupid Summer Olympic game crap the other day. You had a bunch of, hey, are you kidding me? And that's not what we should have our children be. I don't believe in a theocracy, but you should be able to raise your children in the faith that you choose, and that shouldn't be a bad thing. And the second reason is this country. Too many education systems now are teaching our kids that this country is racist or wrong. We should be ashamed of this country. And I refuse to listen to that, but I definitely refuse to let my kids be raised in that. So on the wall of our schoolhouse at home, we have a Declaration of Independence and a Constitution. I want my children to grow up knowing how great this country is, knowing how lucky they are to be Americans, and know what their parents fought for. Know what their parents, most kids spend their 20s, surf bum, ski bum, maybe they're building houses. My wife and I spent our 20s in the desert fighting a war. And but when I watched Afghanistan come down, when I watched those bodies fall from the plane, when I watched 13 U.S. servicemen get vaporized there at Abbey Gate, I was ashamed of this flag. I was ashamed that we had abandoned hundreds of American citizens, that we left $7 billion of equipment which is now in the possession and active use of Al-Qaeda, ISIS-K, and the Taliban. We literally gave billions of dollars of equipment to our enemies. There's no other way to say it. And that was disgraceful. And when I watched that happen, I said, man, what did we spend our years doing? What did my wife and I spend our 20s doing? And I had the moral weight of I had made decisions in combat that luckily I didn't lose anybody under my command. No one was killed, but they lost legs, they lost arms, they were wounded. So seeing that, knowing I made decisions that caused those guys to come home not as whole men, and then we washed all that away. I mean, if I knew we were just going to walk away, I would have said, guys, stay in the wire, eat food. We're not going to risk ourselves over this. And, it was tough to watch that happen. And in the wake of that, I said, I got to get involved. I was never political before this, but I got to get engaged somehow. And, that was just the straw that broke camel's back for me. There's a lot of things going on that are crazy. Watching millions of people come across our southern border, unvetted. We got hundreds of people that we found that are on the terrorist watches. Those are just the ones we've actually found. When 2/3 of the people coming across the border are not detected, and guess what? If they're coming across on the watch list, they're going to try not to get detected. How many are here that we didn't know about? It took 19 hijackers to attack us on 9/11. How many are here now? And that doesn't even talk about the economic impact of these millions of people. The economic impact when they come here, it's an upward transfer of wealth. When they show up and they undercut existing citizens and wages, they take billions of dollars out of our Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security programs. They go to cities and take tens of millions of dollars. I went to the city of Yuma. I used to live along the southern border when I was in the military, so I spent a long time there. I went back there to Yuma this winter and talked to the mayor. He said it costs us $25 million a year as a city of Yuma. They're not a big city. This isn't New York City. This is like a Billings, $25 million a year it costs our city to take care of the illegal immigrants just in healthcare. Just in healthcare. Because they come across the border, they're dehydrated, they're injured, they walk up to the emergency room and they're required to care for them. When those doctors care for them, the money just doesn't appear out of nowhere. Someone's got to pay the bill. And it goes to the closest government, fronts the bill. Now, they can go ask for reimbursement at some point from the federal government, which then it's your money. But that's what it's doing to our local communities. And we used to have the most secure border in American history. And within 3 months, they flipped it around, opened it up intentionally. And it's been going on for 3.5 years now. And we're being told if you talk about it, you're racist. If you advocate for a secure border, you're a xenophobe, and you're not enlightened. Well, the simple fact is we have every right to know who's coming into this country. We have every right to decide if they belong here or not. And we have every right to know we have a secure border. You're not forced to keep your front door unlocked and propped open every night. You shouldn't have to do the same thing with our border. So we're going to close that thing on day one. That's party number one. And this is the best thing about it. Anybody see John Tester's commercials where he's fighting Biden to secure the border? Those are my favorite ones. And that's the other piece. If you're here today, you're a thought leader. If you're here today, you understand the issues. People will listen to you. When you go out and you talk to people and they say, yeah, but he's not really a Democrat. I mean, he's got a D behind his name, but he's basically a very moderate conservative guy. He's not. He's absolutely not. And the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the voting record. For the last 3.5 years, Kamala Harris has broken more ties than any other vice president in the history of this country, including 2-term vice presidents, 8 years. She's broken more ties in 3.5 years. That means a 50-50 Senate. The vice president comes in and breaks the tie. And Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are 2 former Democrat senators who were pushed out of their party and forced to become independents, and they're not running for re-election simply because they would not toe the line on this radical legislation, from letting boys play girls' sports, which John Tester voted for, to securing the border, which John Tester did not vote for, to continuing to fund illegal migrant flights, which John Tester voted for. Every time the Biden-Harris agenda has come on the chopping block in the Senate, every single time, without exception, John Tester has voted for the Biden-Harris agenda. Every single time. 95%. Well, actually, no. Every time the Biden-Harris agenda's hit it, every single time. Whenever one of those issues has been on the docket, he has not broken with them once. He's let it pass every time. Yeah, he'll vote against them on these messaging bills where they'll put something out there they know is not going to pass, and they float up a balloon, literally just so John Tester could shoot it down and say, look, I'm bipartisan. When it matters, when that legislation is about to pass and go into law, he stood with them every single time. And there were two other senators that are not running for re-election because they decided to stand up for their states, which are Trump states, that said, listen, I may agree with this, but my people do not. I can't in good conscience vote for this. John Tester never once did that. So when people mention he's a middle-of-the-road guy, he's a moderate, you set them straight right away. Because if he was, we wouldn't have a wide-open border. We wouldn't have boys and girls sports. We wouldn't be doing all this radical stuff that's undermining our country. So remind people that when they try to tell you John Tester's a middle-of-the-road guy. And remind them about veterans, too, because I get that all the time. They bring up, oh, he's for the veterans. Don't let them forget, if he's for the veterans, why are we in the position we're in right now? The Constitution guides our government. We are a constitutional republic. And what we're seeing happen every single day, I don't like hyperbolic language. I don't like to say we're in a civil war, all that crap. I don't believe that. But I do believe we have one party in this country, because they've said as much, that does not believe in our Constitution. They don't think our Constitution should be the single arbiter of how we do business as a government, and that's simply what it is. And what's on the block in the Senate right now would be fundamentally change how we run this country. The Democrats in the Senate want to eliminate the legislative filibuster. That takes the vote threshold from 60 to 51. Then they want to add 2 more states, Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. That's 4 more senators plugged right in. And then they want to pack the Supreme Court once that's done. They tried to do it when FDR was president, and Joe Biden just today released his statement to say we are going to retool the Supreme Court. I'm going to change it so it works better for progressives, which is the exact opposite of what the Supreme Court is supposed to do. It's supposed to be lifetime appointments with no accountability to the executive branch, because it's supposed to be a check on a runaway government. It's about time we get our Constitution back in the driver's seat of our government. We got to get a balance of powers back to our 3 branches of government. We got to eliminate the professional bureaucrats that run this country. And we've got to make sure that the people are put back in charge. That's going to be a tall order. As I already told you, I've never been a politician before, and I've never been in the Senate before. So there's going to be a lot of learning for me, and I've been a leader. I've been leading people on the field of battle since I was a teenager, all the way up through 20s. Been leading. I'm a water bomber pilot. Just last night, I got in from Oregon. I've been filling in for my pilots because they're timing out. So I fly the big red, yellow water bombers come through and drop water on wildfires. As you know, we're experiencing a record fire year yet again, largely because we got forests that are full of dead fuel that we haven't been able to clear for 50 years, but that's another topic. I believe in leadership. You have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a mouth. Use them accordingly. Good leaders listen. They listen to their people. They listen to what they need, and they try to implement that. They listen to what their constituents need, what the constituents want. Leaders can't always give you everything you want. As Rolling Stones say, you can't always get what you want, right? But we make sure that every single day we're fighting to return accountability in our government, and we're making sure that every decision we make is making the lives of our constituents better. And that's a pretty simple axiom as a leader. You have a mission, and you have people you're responsible for, and every action you take has to support those 2 things. One thing I do have as a junior senator, should I win, is the power of no. I can't say yes and make a lot of things happen yet, but what I can do is say no a lot. And I can say, you know what, we're going to say no to this lunacy, especially in a closely divided Senate. I can stop the insane spending. I can stop the anti-American policies flowing through this government. And I can say no to sending hundreds of billions of dollars overseas to other countries when our own country is crumbling right in front of us.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's what I can do. So when I jumped into this campaign about a year ago, I had 4% name ID. 3% of that's because there's a judge in Missoula named Sheehy, and the other 1% was like my 4 kids and my cows and horses and everything. So basically I was nobody, and I was like, Tim who? My first meet and greet like this was at the senior center. One of my first ones at the senior center in Wolf Point. And I walk in to have our meet and greet, and there's 2 people there.
Oh, wow.
And neither of them were there for the meet and greet. They just happened to be there, playing checkers. Well, I'm here. Let's sit down and have a chat. So we did, and it's come a long way from there. And it's come a long way for the simple reason that this is how I've been campaigning. John Tester's been campaigning from his basement in D.C. with $200 million of out-of-state dark money covering the airwaves with lies. That's it. He's not getting out doing this. All 56 counties, every VFW hall, every rodeo, everywhere we can get, this is how we're doing it. Shaking hands, looking people in the eye, saying, hey, this is why I'm running, this is who I am, and here's what we got to do to save this country. And that's why, for the first time in John Tester's history, he's behind in the polls now. We are winning. And now you've met Tim Sheehy, but I know you know Shady Sheehy a lot better. I've gotten to know this guy too. Yeah, he seems like a great guy. You know, his ranch is twice as big as mine. He's got like a yacht in the Caymans. He's got, it's great. You know, I'd probably switch places with that guy if I could find him. But the truth is, that should tell you a lot about Jon Tester. He's been elected office for 30 years: state Senate, state House, U.S. Senate. And here's a guy who could point to 30 years of things that he's done for you, the people of Montana. That's right. He could say, listen, here's everything I've done to make veterans benefits better. Here's everything I've done to make sure that you Montanans, our streets are safer, that our Keystone XL is built and running, which is not, that Colstrip's up and running, that our forests are creating economic activity and they're healthy. Instead, he's spending his $200 million campaign budget, which is crazy. By the way, he's the number one recipient, in the whole country of every single candidate, congressional, senatorial, gubernatorial, presidential, even more than our two presidential candidates. He receives more lobbyist and out-of-state dark money than any other candidate in the country. Wow. Yeah, think about that. That's why you can't get away from the ads, because he has more money. This will be the most expensive election in American history per vote here in Montana this cycle, this little old Montana Senate seat. Wow. And that's because they know with Jon Tester's voting record, the only way to keep him in office is just dump money on top of his head. And what do they do with that money? They go after me, my family, my businesses. They literally try to put my company out of business. We got hundreds of Montana employees. And by the way, he's been attacking my companies. I got out of the military as a wounded vet. I got out into my barn. I started with another combat veteran. We started my company from scratch. And we hope one day maybe we'd have 5 or 10 employees. We've created over 400 jobs from scratch. And that's what we want veterans to do. Come home after fighting for their country and then continue to serve their country by creating jobs for other veterans and creating opportunity for them. That's something I'm proud of. That's something I'm proud of, and Jon Tester likes to make fun of and attack it. And Montanans should be disgusted that they have a sitting senator who's actively trying to put a Montana company out of business just to make me look bad. But either way, we're still doing our mission. We're aerial firefighting all over the world. We got operations in Europe, Australia, Canada, all across the U.S., and I'm proud of the work that our veteran team's doing. And so should Montana. They should be proud that a veteran-founded business, veteran-staffed business is doing that kind of important work. And sooner or later, Montana's going to wake up for us. But the amount of money he brings in says a lot about who he is. He's owned by these special interests. He is. Again, look at his voting record. The state that Trump won by 20 points. He can't bring himself to vote for one bill that puts America first. Not one. In the last 3.5 years, he's voted for every single piece of legislation that's come down the Biden-Harris pike. And when you're representing a group of people that by 20 points says, we want X, and you're giving them Y, that's a problem. But then comes back here and tells you, well, I've been trying to give you Y. I tried to get the Keystone XL pipeline built, but then I killed it. Colstrip, I guess you want Colstrip to stay open so you have cheap electricity, but I'm going to kill that too. It's about time we hold him accountable for not just his rhetoric, but his actions, because they don't match. That's why I call him Two-Faced Tester. He goes to D.C., votes like a full-on socialist liberal, and he comes back here and tells us, he's a Trump conservative. Right now, Trump's winning the state by 20-plus points. And we're ahead by, that's right. You should be happy about that. I'm only beating Tester by 2 points. So that means we have like 20% of the people are like, I'm going to vote for Trump and Tester. That's the problem right now, is we have a lot of people in the state that actually think he's a Trump Republican, but just a Democrat on the side. It's going to take you guys to do that. I'm not going to have enough money to pay for it. We just aren't. Well, I don't bring in all the out-of-state dark money that he does. So the best way to do that is you talk to 10 people. You talk to 20 people. And frankly, that's how we're going to save this country, not just this election. Trump's not going to save this country. J.D. Vance isn't going to save it. I'm not going to save it. You have to save this country. The American people have to stand up. I can promise you, I'd much rather be with my 4 young kids on my farm and ranch flying water bombers. I don't want to go hang out in D.C. with a bunch of 80-year-old men and argue every day. I can promise you that. But that's what's in store. So I'm standing up. I'm asking you to stand up, too. I can promise you, running for office is a pain in the ass. There's nothing fun about it, But I've loved getting around the state. I've loved getting to every single county and looking people in the eye and seeing that, hey, I'm frustrated. I'm pissed off. I'm not happy that I'm paying $3.60 a gallon for gas right now. It used to be $1.50. I'm not happy that I can't afford to buy a house in my own town. I'm not happy I can't get homeowners insurance because our forests are full of deadfall and they won't insure my home at farm or ranch. I'm not happy that right now 100,000 Americans a year are dying from fentanyl-related overdoses pouring across our southern border because we have an administration that's chosen not to secure the border. I'm not happy hundreds of billions of dollars of my taxpayer money are paying for other countries' borders to be secure while ours is not. I'm not happy that we're forgiving billions of dollars of student loans for a bunch of overeducated, unemployable nincompoops. And once they get their money, they're out there calling for death of the Jews and protesting for Hamas. And guess what? Those student loan money is not some leprechaun pot of gold falling out of the sky. That's coming out of your pocket. That is your money. And when we, as a nation, we don't have enough working men and women. For 3 generations, we've told young men and women, hey, if you grow up and work with your hands, you're a failure. You should grow up and want to sit in a cubicle with yoga pants on and type, social media crap. Meanwhile, we don't have enough diesel mechanics, welders, pipe fitters, timber mills. We don't have enough police, electricians, carpenters. You name it, linemen, anything. We can't fill the ranks of our military. And that's because we've told 3 generations of young men and women that you need to go to college, take a course in gender studies and basket weaving, no matter how many $100,000 your debt you're in, get your education. But for God's sake, never grow up and work with your hands, because then you'll be dirty. You'll be one of those uneducated, lower class people. Oh, you mean the people that make the economy run? Yeah. The people that make our country function, that keep our economy humming, the people that built this country from the ground up? That's what we're talking about. So I think, before we pay a cent of student loan for anybody, the first student loan should be paid for are those that actually have a trades education, that have a real job, that are actually out there working to keep our country on track. Because what's happened is we have stopped rewarding hard work, and we started to reward
lazy.
No, great way to put it. Yeah, lazy. Because why work hard? You're going to get taxed more. If you make good money, we're going to go after you and tax you more. We're going to take that money. We're going to give it to people that are going to college to learn that Jewish people should be wiped off the face of the earth. And we're going to burn American flags on the campuses. Mm-hmm. So we deprioritize working class America, and that's a problem because, like my workforce, I'm a blue collar workforce in my company. We got bush pilots, we got mechanics, we got avionics technicians, sheet metal technicians. And a lot of these skills you can't hire in America anymore. You can't find people who know how to rivet aviation-grade aluminum. It's tough. You don't just jam a rivet, and you have to know the tolerance of that metal. We can't find enough people that know how to put a wiring harness together. Stuff you used to kind of learn the basics of in shop class, we don't teach that anymore. We don't teach people mechanics and carpentry at school because that's bad. I think it's about time we start rewarding hard work in this country again. We put the American working man and woman first, and we take care of them because that's the bedrock of our economy. You start talking about stuff like this, like, man, this isn't like, PhD level policy discussion. This is just common sense, right? Like, this is just common sense. This is stuff that 30 years ago was like, yeah, that's just what you do, But now it's become, controversial. And as I've traveled all 56 counties in the state, talked to thousands and thousands of people, I've heard that for the most part, what Montanans want back is common sense. It's almost, they don't even care about Republican, Democrat anymore. They just want common sense back. And what does common sense mean to most Montanans? They want a secure border. They want safe streets, cheap gas, cops are good, criminals are bad, boys are boys, girls are girls. Okay? And I can't promise you on every piece of legislation, whatever, but those things I just listed, that's what I'm going to fight for. When I get to D.C., that's what I'm going to fight for. I'm going to fight to bring common sense back to our government and make sure we put the American people first again. Because right now they're taking a back seat to the rest of the world and everything else going on. It's time to put a stop to it. I want to stick around and make sure I shake every one of your hands and have a chance to have a conversation with you. So thank you for coming out today. We got 90 days to Election Day. I'm going to need your help. Yard signs, handshakes, get out there, knock doors, whatever it takes. We're going to need your help. I look forward to sticking around and spending some time with all of you today. We have to save America. Let's get to work. Thank you very much.